It's variety.
Welcome, Joe.
Thank you,
Stilgoe.
Adam. I am here.
Good.
It is me.
I am glad you are here. Can I start at the beginning?
Absolutely not. No, start at the end. Let's wrap this up.
The
The beginning of time.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the wild tropics of Surrey.
Oh.
Yeah. Dad needed to be near, and Mum needed to be near London for work, but also so we were outside the M25. But quite fairly bucolic, middle of the countryside on an old farm, and all very nice. And then we moved when I was about 12 to even further east Surrey, and that's where my dad still is.
East Surrey.
Yes, I know it's a fabled magical land.
Sounds like a song.
Let's go to East Surrey. The East Surrey with the fringe on top. There's nothing one can say about Surrey to make it glamorous.
No, it is glamorous. I lived near Surrey. What did near? New Malden.
New Malden?
Yes.
Better than Old Malden, I think. It's an improvement.
It's an improvement. Yes, possibly.
We had a friend of mine on here, Jolie Papillon.
Yes.
And she was from Rimini.
She's
from
exactly.
Rimini in Italy.
Which is slightly
and you
more
say
glamorous.
Rimini and people go, oh.
Yes. Well, my introduction to her was slightly more, she was, I would refer to the golden age of Italian film, for example.
Yeah, Vita Bella.
Well, I didn't refer to sort of the golden age of, Surrey musical stuff.
We're here to change Surrey's reputation.
So tell me, what's your first musical memory, I suppose?
First musical memory, probably hearing my mum sing. I used to go to her singing lessons with Margaret Hyde. Can't remember where that was. Probably near New Malden. My mum was an opera singer until I was about 6, and I think I probably was the reason she gave up.
What type of stuff did she?
She sang at Glyndebourne. She was in various operas directed by Peter Hall. She was quite a favourite of his. She was a mezzo soprano. Sang a lot of Monteverdi, and then when she had children, she sort of veered into more recital work. So she sang Lieder.
Yeah.
So I would go, I think I remember seeing her sing various festivals. Dad also was always busy. Everyone always says, well, what was it like growing up with your dad? He must have been so musical. It must have been. But I remember him more with a saw and his workmate chopping up wood and building stuff.
Well, that's sort of a metaphor, isn't it, in a way?
Yeah.
Sort of, you have to, you have to be the sharp ends, sort of, and sort of.
Yeah, quite. Well, he was building another piano.
It wasn't a metaphor. I just turned
a non-metaphor.
A non-metaphor.
Yeah. So music was everywhere in a very sort of laissez-faire. This is music. Take it or leave it. It's our life. It wasn't sort of wrapped in cotton wool, aspic, whatever you wrap things in. It was very much their jobs. My mum then became a magistrate.
So did you just think, I suppose, growing up in that sort of family, it wasn't anything special. It's what you were only thing you were used to.
No, I think so. I mean, I remember in French classes, we all had to say what our fathers did, not mothers.
In French?
Yes, oui, oui. Sign of the times. What does your father do? And everyone was saying, Mon père est un homme d'affaires, businessman.
Yeah.
That seemed to be going round.
Médecin?
No, pas de médecin. I think that was sort of the type of school I was at. And I was just kind of gradually combusting in the corner because they were about to come to me. I was Stilgoe's S was quite late in the alphabet. I was thinking, what's the French for piano entertainer, comedic clown? No, musicals. So I just came to me, Joe, mon père est un homme d'affaires. So, I just
lied.
I lied.
You lied.
But it was a lovely, very down-to-earth upbringing. Music was one of the many things that my parents were interested in.
Because I think it is interesting, because for most people, and this is one of the reasons I do this podcast, is that everyone on this podcast leads an unusual life.
Yeah.
A lot of them, their background wasn't unusual. They came from people whose parents were literally businessmen. So you came from a slightly unusual background, but for you, it's not it is your background.
Yeah, I suppose that normalizes it. So lots of the people you would have interviewed maybe chose their vocation, or it was chosen for them because of a need to break out of the sort of formulaic
I think
way
that's
of living.
I think that's true. That
the whole sort of growing up in in the suburbs, the grind of everyday life. I want to be fabulous and I want to have a life that's different. Yeah, I didn't have that. I didn't have commuting parents I didn't have anything to rebel against. I remember the only thing I really rebelled at as a teenager was that I didn't like musical theatre.
How dare you? Well, that changed though, didn't it?
It did change, but I was really vehemently against it, even though it's my dad's job.
You see, that's the opposite. I've been very uncool the whole of my life because I've always loved music.
Always loved it. Well,
you see, my father, who's 92,
right,
he grew up in New York in the golden age of Broadway. So he went to the original productions of Oklahoma South Pacific, saw Ethel Merman live. Yeah. So I was full of those stories. Yeah. So for me, musical theatre, amazing.
That's a love passed down, cherished, burnished. Keep it going.
Yes.
As I had to come back to it. So that's where I went off to jazz clubs, which is sort of the next step of, grew up learning music, various different instruments.
Let's go back a bit though. In terms of your musical education at school, did you do the grades or the normal sort of?
Not very good at the grades. I did grade 5 and then promptly stopped. I was a bit of a funny one, unboxable, even though my teachers would have quite liked to box me, I think.
But I think that's the problem, isn't it? People do like boxing people. I mean, not boxing like that.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of the gloves. Because music education has moved on a pace and it's fantastic in its breadth and opportunity now. But back then it was very much do this, do that, do this. I found it quite hard. I was more of an improviser, listened to music by ear and then did my own interpretations.
So have you always had that skill?
Yeah. I remember listening to The Candle in the Wind by Elton John when I was about 6 and being able to play it, which makes me sound like a prodigy, but I wasn't very good. But I could always emulate or at least play what I heard. And then as I grew up, I learned about the sort of structural harmony that goes underneath it. Well, playing the piano, you can't just learn something by ear and be able to know how the song goes unless you're an absolute stone cold genius. So that would be, I remember being frustrated, thinking, I can't work out. I got really into sort of funk and soul, Earth, Wind, Fire and the Blues Brothers and James Brown. And there were certain songs where it seemed obvious to me and then there would be a chord change that completely flummoxed me. So I then...
So what did you do at that point?
I just gave up.
In terms of flummox, you didn't know what it was or what? Yeah.
So then my ambition was to learn...
You mean the name? Like,
yeah. If it's a sort of a split chord, so... slash chord, we call them, where harmony gets a bit complicated. So you've got E flat in one hand and maybe B flat in the other, or A in the bass and D in the right hand. Because those are things you need to learn in music. So it's always an interesting mix.
So did you go somewhere to learn that, or did you learn that yourself?
I did. Yeah, I played in bands, and I went off, became a drummer, and started a band of 2 called Squeal. Very good.
Good name.
Great name. Where's Squeal? And then, started to say to anyone who was teaching me music, I like jazz. Could I learn jazz? And it was very much, no, you can't learn jazz. And then we found out about youth jazz bands. There was one in Surrey Youth Jazz Orchestra. But at the same time, I was learning classical singing. So I did have a love of that.
Oh, from your mother,
yeah.
Obviously.
So that helped with my musicality, definitely.
I'm sure singing does, because also that helps your hearing, doesn't it?
Hearing, reading, I was singing in choirs. So I had a sort of split life where I loved choral music and I loved singing. And at university, I went on to study singing.
So you studied music at university. Where did you go?
Southampton.
Okay. So you did a music degree.
Yeah, which was great. It was chance because I went to study philosophy because I was one of those. I just didn't know. Everyone else seemed to know. They wanted to be homme d'affaires, businessmen, or médecin, or French. But I
studied French, actually.
Did you?
Yes. I was dreadful.
Oh, well, I've heard at least 3 words.
I understood the word médecin, see, and the word homme d'affaires, but as far as I get. I can sing the Marseillaise, maybe, but...
That's all you needed to do back then. Yeah, so philosophy I went to study, and quickly I realised that the job prospects of a philosopher were even more minuscule than that of a jazz musician. Yeah. Can you name a famous philosopher now that's around now?
No, I can name some dead philosophers.
Yeah,
Descartes.
Plenty of dead ones.
Descartes, he was good.
He's coming on next week.
Sartre, I've got Sartre next week.
Actually,
have you noticed I'm dressed in black? I was doing the existential.
Yeah, very good. If you had a Gauloise and
a beret. I left that at home. I think that's what I could do.
Very much.
So you did music at...
Yeah.
And already in your head, had you thought this is going to be my career?
No idea. I think it was probably the last year I mean, it does wrap around you, music, and it takes a while for you to realize. But I didn't want to be famous. I didn't want to be a performer, which is quite odd, I think, for people in my job. I've always been a bit of a dreamer and a bit of a nostalgist, and I wanted to have a nice life and be surrounded by lovely things. I realized that lots of the things I loved, old films, old music, the best way to have those in my life was possibly to try and emulate them in a performing way. So I started to find heroes that were still doing it now, like Harry Connick Jr., who was sort of a throwback to the previous generation. So he sort of was the bridge for me. Yeah, I suppose the last year at university, I thought, I applied to Guildhall to do a master's. So I was definitely thinking about it then, but I failed to get in, even though my piano teacher said, you'll be fine. But it was the best thing that ever happened, because then I got a job for Disney. Yes. Your silence speaks volumes.
I was trying to crack some joke as to sort of a character.
No, there's plenty.
Character in the...
It was a Mickey Mouse job.
Yeah, that was the joke. Have you ever thought about doing comedy, by the way?
Comedy? I've never heard of it. I worked for Disney for a year on their cruise ships. I was sort of head of music and learnt so much. Learnt about how to deal with people, how to play for 6 hours a day.
Yeah, it's hard life. So what were you doing? Piano vocals?
Mainly piano, just piano. And then I was also kind of in charge of all the music on the ship.
Wow.
For some reason, age 22.
So how did you get that job?
I auditioned and a guy had just retired. This guy I took over from, Peter someone, who's from North Yorkshire. He was 65 and he was retiring. And then this guy turns up having to deal with, I mean, Disney is a serious organization, but also so are the princesses.
Were you handling the princesses?
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay, we won't go there. I knew there was something you didn't want to talk about. So
that's the off-limits bit.
That was the bit we were...
Well, I did sign an NDA.
Non-Donald, yes.
Non-Donald agreement. That was a proper schooling. I'm sure you've talked to people about where it really clicked. And oddly, age 22, that was the first time I thought I can be a proper, seriously...
Because that probably involved you doing an awful lot of different things at the same time. So, as you say, playing for a long time, which is that's a mental thing as much as a playing thing, isn't it?
And a physical thing.
Yeah.
What people forget about music, and it's something that is now encouraged and up for discussion at the conservatoires, is about keeping your body in shape. Alexander technique or Tai Chi or things that... Yes. Because I used to have a terrible back in my 20s. Because I was just
hunched.
I used to do hotel gigs for 5 hours a night.
Well, and the same with violinists or any instrumentalist.
Yeah. You get beaten up. So learning about that is really interesting. But yeah, it was one afternoon I'd be playing for the signing. All the characters would be, signing stuff for the children.
I'm sorry. I presume you were yourself.
I was myself.
You were
yourself. No, because all of the costumes only have 3 fingers. Can't play my full repertoire. But there was written music to, I could read enough by then to be able to play quite complicated stuff. And then it would be off to host a music quiz in another part of the ship, and then to introduce a band, and then to do a cocktail set. So it really was sort of setting me up for what I do now.
No, exactly. So it made you comfortable being in front of people, I presume.
Yeah, and children, there's no harder audience than a bunch of 7-year-olds. Because they are blank-faced. They haven't learnt to look like they're enjoying themselves.
To pretend, yeah. But when they do get it, then they...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen that, but when they do... Yeah.
So how long were you on the boat for how long?
A year.
That's quite
long. And then a couple of others. And then I thought, never again. Dry land. I remember writing a song called Someday This Will All Be Yesterday, which is a very sort of 22-year-old sort of, I'm so lonely. I never got past the title, I think. Someday This Will All Be Yesterday. But then came back to London, moved to London. I'd say back to London, hadn't really lived here. Moved to London, went to Trinity
to do your master's?
College to do a master's.
Oh, so you did do your master's in the end?
I was good enough by then. And that was in jazz piano, jazz singing.
So do you think that was important to do? Because you speak to lots of musicians who sort of slightly... Well, not against those stuff, but don't feel it's somehow jazz is in you, or
I think I was a bit of a late developer with all that. At that age, was still listening to players my age and thinking, how are they doing that? I don't understand any of that language. So going to a college, it was more about meeting people and finding a network and
a band. I'm sure. And of course, jazz is hugely collaborative, isn't it? So you need other people. Yeah.
Yeah. And you need to be going to the venues where it happens and hearing what the standard is, but also what the sort of general sense of what the music is, what people are engaged with.
So at that point, then, I presume you'd become for want of a better word, a serious jazz musician.
Yeah, I suppose so. I was trying to build some kind of a reputation of being bookable in a jazz club, not in a, I then later in life branched out and sort of developed more of a sort of cabaret set and was able to do that. But I always slightly pause on the serious jazz musician thing, because there are people I know and love and respect who really are disciples of the proper exponents of the seriousness of that music. And I always like to engage with the audience most. That was,
yes,
and that's something that isn't something that's taught as part of your sort of jazz.
No, but
package.
it's not really encouraged. It's almost sort of like antithesis of what jazz is.
Yeah, it's so broad.
Jazz, I don't know. Jazz sometimes to me just seems quite intellectual, sort of musically intellectual and sort of very good, but not entertainment as such.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it is, and people are heavily into it, but it's interesting, isn't it? It's a different...
Well, we've now got 100 years of that art form to look back on and to sort of dissect. And there's an element of jazz that started off as a sort of rebellious act of defiance, really, but also it was always entertainment. And then I think it's sort of developed its seriousness over the years. Because it was just jazz was a means of musicians
but also,
improvising.
I don't really want to get onto this because there's no answer. What is jazz? Because I presume Harry Connick Jr. is jazz, Frank Sinatra's jazz, or
yeah, as much as John Zorn or Pharoah Sanders, and currently players like Chris Potter and Christian Sands and modern jazz musicians who are so much. The harmony is so incredibly complex and dense, and it's a huge field, isn't it? But I think
I often sort of equate it with contemporary classical music, which also feels very dense, very intellectual, and not that much fun from my perspective.
Well, I think now I think maybe that was 20 years ago. I think now we're in an age where people are writing because of the gathered, I suppose, collateral of and the history of all this music that's been written. And if you think about modern music, modern classical music, really early 20th century, again, we've got 100 years of from Schoenberg, Stravinsky, Shostakovich through to, and then I would say Benjamin Britten sounds as modern as anything. And that's getting on for 80 years old, some of that. So I think modern music, contemporary classical concert music now is much more varied, and you get some. I was listening to Erilyn Wallen the other day, whose music is fabulous and melodic and interesting. Whereas when my mum was at the Royal Academy, and her composition tutor was Harrison Birtwistle, famously
that's a good
famously atonal.
Atonal. Maybe that's what I don't like.
Atonal. No, I think a lot of it's hard. It's really hard.
That's why I like musical theatres. I like.
You like a tune.
I like a tune.
I like a tune.
And then I feel really bad.
I like a leg.
I feel really badly about liking a tune. It's as though I'm sort of something.
Tunes are the hard. Well, tune's the hardest thing. A good tune.
Yes, exactly.
Is hard.
And
it's like a good joke.
The thing you always ask, when you've left a musical, particularly a new musical, well, I couldn't hum any of the tunes.
Yeah. So often leveled at musicals. I would say that was also said of West Side Story in the review. It's such an obvious one for critics. What they mean is they couldn't find anything that they'd already heard before.
Yes, that's true, I suppose.
And sometimes, I mean, one of the shows I wrote this song, I thought, that's absolute pap. It's just sort of a cliched song. And that was the one song in the show that the Times said, that's the number. Because it was basically basically almost stolen from some other song.
Yeah. It was like with Sondheim, the only song that anyone really knows is Send in the Clowns, which is arguably the least Sondheim of all his songs, sort of.
Yeah, I mean, Sondheim is a whole other podcast of reverence. But yeah, hummability, tunes. I mean, I would love to talk about that for hours, about how a tune is made and how it's crafted and why it works and all of those things. Not now.
Not now. So you graduated from Trinity with your masters.
Yeah.
You started working as a musician, as a jazz musician, solo in
Yeah,
groups?
trying to be a jazz musician, that was the hard thing to get gigs. It was mainly hotels, restaurants, anything. Just really walking around town trying to get gigs.
That's hard, isn't it?
Yeah. I wasn't a natural hustler. There's a restaurant near the South Bank Centre called the Archduke. That was one of the first ones.
And that's still there.
Yeah, and they still have
jazz. They still have jazz, yeah.
Remember the guy saying, "Yeah, we can give you a gig. Just remember, play the tune. We don't like too much noodling."
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
Not too much improvisation. No, not too many notes either.
Not too many notes.
Yeah,
You've exceeded your note count.
Your note count.
Yes, so that era was sort of desperate to get a foot in the door at a jazz club. One of the earliest ones to have me was called The Spice of Life, still going, which was run by the lovely Paul Pace. It was just a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday club, I think. But they would put on a new singer for a mini set. So you'd get sort of 4 songs before someone. And that was really important because from then I got spotted by someone else. I got a weird record deal where I had to just record loads of demos, and they wanted me to be the sort of new Michael Bublé, which was never going to happen because I don't know what I wanted to be, but it was not that. I never wanted to do the obvious route, which has possibly held me back in many ways.
Well, maybe not, but you created something that was uniquely you, I suppose.
Yeah. They were talking about the first album. I said, I definitely want a Flanders and Swan song on there. They were going, seriously? We just thought it would be Crimea River and, Moondance and things. And I fully appreciate Michael Bublé and his amazing world.
So he's in that Harry Connick.
Yeah. He's slightly younger than Harry Connick. But that's
the same sort of material. And then everyone, Robbie Williams, everyone then starts doing.
Well, a big inspiration for me was Jamie Cullum, who's now, I can hopefully count as a friend. He was my age, but had started earlier and knew what he wanted. If you were interviewing him, he would say, well, I was probably 15 when I was playing piano bars in Reading and wanted to do it. So
he already knew.
So he knew, and I was still sort of skipping around the pastures of Surrey.
You are now doing some jazz. You had this record deal. Is there a point where you felt you were beginning to make it more? Was there a moment that something happened, or was it very gradual, do you think?
Yeah, the idea of the big break is, even to the people who've had it, is always probably more of a hindsight thing. Oh, that was it.
Yeah. Because you don't realise it at the time.
Because the next day, unless you are, I don't know, I could say that someone like Ray, who's currently absolutely, becoming a global superstar, she definitely was unknown to most people even 18 months ago, and is now up there, selling out arenas. So I think she's had a moment like that. I'm not saying I'm putting myself in her basket, but I think the first time I got booked at Ronnie Scott's was huge.
Was that a solo as part of a...
That was, with my trio. I'd been doing, because I'd sort of got myself into sort of socially, higher echelons, cabaret circuits. And there was one gig we did at the Savoy, and a record label called Candid Records came to see it. And I'd known about Candid because Jamie was on them, Stacey Kent, Claire Teal, and loads of other people I really admired. And they said, we want to sign you. And I thought, that's fabulous. But I was already signed to these other guys. So we had a bit of a sort of awkwardness, and they held back some songs. It was my first taste of the music industry being a bit of a two-headed beast. I went to lunch with Alan Bates, who very sadly died about 18 months ago, and James Wright, who is now Jacob Collier's manager, but he was running Candid. And they said, well, let's just try. Let's just, do a record. We can deal with those guys, but let's do it. And through that, I got a booking at Ronnie Scott's, which was a shared bill. This is the chicken and egg thing. Once you put yourself out there as a public performer, how do you get people to come and see you? Because if they don't know you, so this is why you have to sort of build it up. It's like my dad used to say, to get an equity card, you had to had to be in something.
Yes,
but you couldn't be in something unless you had an equity card. It was really... So people would do sort of summer season in Frinton, or they would do...
Just to get the equity card.
Or above a pub, for nothing. Try and get equity to come must have been such a grind. Yeah, so Ronnie's was a big big start. And then I think the next year I got rebooked. I got some early press and things from that experience of first album. I thought, I've got a name in the newspaper or this and that. I suppose seals your fate, because once you get the quite addictive feeling of being talked about, having never had any ambition to be famous or to be a performer, suddenly, I'm doing it. And now I've got my dad on the phone saying, well, we must get you this and this.
An agent, a lawyer.
Yeah. A wife.
A wife. And not necessarily in that order.
Yeah. I know, I've got the perfect woman for all three.
Can we just turn to the type of shows I've seen you do, which are the more improvised shows. Can you just describe for people who haven't how those shows work?
I would say elements are improvised, but the main thing, which I always thought was just a sort of party piece, I wouldn't do seriously, is where I start with nothing and ask the audience to shout out either a song or a piece of music. And I tried to sort of engineer it in a way that it seemed like I would just be taking a request. Because any decent piano bar musician can do that.
Yeah.
Can you play Billy Joel?
Piano man.
Yeah. Can you play Elton John? In fact, I've got a friend in America, sort of American version of me, called Julian Villard, and his new album's called Please Don't Make Me Play Piano Man Again, because that's been his life. And he's a New York, Brooklyn Jewish. He's basically Billy Joel Mark II. So yeah, I would ask for a song, and then someone. And normally, if you ask an audience, they shout out 2 or 3 things at the same time. And I would say, well, since we don't have much time, actually, so I'm going to have to play them all at the same time. And I remember doing that for the first time was probably at Pizza on the Park. And I'd got my set list, but I'd run and looked at the clock, thought, I've run out of songs. And I remember turning to the audience and saying, well, if you want me to play anything? And then I thought, well, maybe Somewhere Over the Rainbow goes with the Postman Pat theme tune. And without having done it before, it was naturally what my brain fell on, and is how my brain works, that I can always find a link between, Ride of the Valkyrie or Take 5. You're thinking of it now, aren't you? And it's been going on for years, and I never get bored of it or sort of afraid of it, or I hope I've sort of, there are variations of doing it, and I've make up songs on the spot with the audience.
With words they give you? Or...
Yeah, I mean, at Christmas, I started doing one which is an improvised song, normally a blues, about the worst Christmas present you could receive. And it's a sort of universal thing. I'm about to do a show in Dublin next year for Valentine's, and we were talking about it with an orchestra, see if we can do it with the orchestra as well. Because it's Valentine's, they were saying, well, could you do your Christmas thing, but for worst Valentine's dates or Valentine's present? And within the audience, you can always say, well, there must be some people here on their first date or maybe their last date. In fact, I remember a show at Ronnie Scott's. Used to do Valentine's at Ronnie Scott's because they thought it was a romantic guy. Me and Natalie Williams, fabulous singer. And I, as a joke, said, is anyone, it's a big night. Is anyone here on their first date? 2 people. And I couldn't help but put all of the pressure. Can we turn the lights on these people? These people, it just happened at that Coldplay gig, didn't it? With the kiss cam.
Yes, it did happen.
It happened.
Yes, you have to be careful. You see, in the old days, no one knew anything about anyone doing anything. No. Now everyone knows everything about everyone.
No, the audience was as anonymous as and the performers were anonymous, and now everyone knows everything. Yeah. In fact, that led me doing that to be asked to do a show at the Old Vic, which you probably saw. High Society.
Oh, I did see that. Yes, I did. High Society. One of my favourite all-time musicals. That.
Oh, well, that, Adam, was what definitely sealed my, not fate, but ambition to be a musician. I remember my dad sitting us down at home and saying, you should watch this film. Early 20s.
Oh, yes. See, you and I have that in common because I did that. In fact, I can probably say this now because I had 2 friends of mine who did, I think it was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? That's Who Wants to Be, yeah. Well, we did a production of Salad Days, right?
Right.
And they decided they liked that song so much they added it into the nightclub sequence of Saturdays the musical, which of course is slightly illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't tell either estate.
Don't tell either estate. And whoever's watching it, no one's alive who did it. So, well, this was about 40 years ago.
It is a great song it's a surprise, isn't it? Millionaire should be in every musical.
And it's
fabulous because it's sort of
and the performances.
Yeah.
It's just it's
yeah. I fell in love with it all.
Yeah.
I was complete. I mean, Grace Kelly was a dream for me, still is. And I married someone who reminds me of her, which is lucky, rather than reminding me of Bing Crosby, which also some people like. But I loved it all, and it was that for both of us was a nostalgia trip, wasn't it? I've always thought how fabulous to be alive at that time, to enjoy the life, the music, the songs. So I
suppose also I'm slightly older than you, but because friends of mine, Frank Sinatra was still alive then, and we'd go to Royal Albert Hall and see Frank Sinatra. I mean, he was past his best, of course, but still had the charisma. There was still a connection with sort of that era.
Yeah, I think everyone from that era has sadly gone. I remember doing a couple of gigs with the great Buddy Greco a few years ago, who was in the Rat Pack, sort of, but knew all of them, but it was just a bit younger.
Yeah, I mean, the person I think personally is the most remarkable is Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah, he's my fave.
Because of everything.
Yeah.
Because of the...
He's the entertainment, the touchstone, isn't he, of everything. Dancing, singing, acting, putting on a show. I mean, I wouldn't choose to listen to a Sammy Davis record over a Sinatra record.
No, that's true.
Because he didn't quite have the taste or the refinement in the recording studio. Plus, he also got last choice with the songs. Yeah. Did you know this?
No.
I mean, like Sinatra, because of his standing and his heavy thumb, in the back, he would work with Sammy Cahn and Jimmy Van Heusen they would write songs for him. And Sammy Davis would get the B-side. Because Sinatra had first pick, Dean Martin might get a...
Yeah.
But there was a bit of sort of surreptitious, whatever it was, racism or just a pecking order.
Yes.
Where I feel like Sammy Davis didn't get the spoils. But he did record a lot of Leslie Bricusse, Anthony Newley songs, which I love. What Kind of Fool Am I? Who Can I Turn To?
Yes.
A song I recorded a couple of years ago, Going to Build a Mountain.
Thing I think about Ray, going back to Ray, who's obviously very good, a lot of people try that sort of Amy Winehouse sound. Yeah. It sounds quite, that there's sort of a sound.
Yeah, I think she's inherited some of that, but I think she's definitely her own thing. But I do see that link. But Amy Winehouse, you would say that's a sort of melting pot of Billie Holiday, Bessie Smith, Sarah Vaughan, but also the soul singers. This is why being a musician now is a joyous. You can just pick and mix.
A melting pot of everything, and you create your own.
You can go. I want a bit of Ray Charles, and I want a bit of Christopher Biggins. Whatever you want.
No, don't knock Christopher Biggins, because he was in Rocky Horror, of course, which is another classic.
I'm seeing Biggins in a couple of weeks.
I'm going to try. I actually mentioned the podcast because I'm quite keen to get Biggins on.
I'll get him on. Okay. He'll do anything.
Right. Tell me about trumpet mutes.
Right. Well, this was probably me being
subtle. This is a subtle.
This was probably me being bored during a gig, and also I have a desperate sort of Labradorish quality that I need to be loved at all times.
Don't we all? And fed.
And
watered, yes.
And walked.
And walked, yes.
Yeah, I just started doing a mouth trumpet solo. One of my great heroes is Hugh Laurie, who you will know and admire, I'm sure. Comedian, actor.
But very good pianist.
Very good pianist.
And that song Misty. Do you know Misty? His version of... Yeah.
So he used to do the end of a bit of Fry and Laurie. He would get to the piano and Stephen Fry would do shaky, shaky cocktails, make cocktails. And he would say, Mr. Music, will you play? And Hugh Laurie would do his mouth trumpet. And I always thought that was great. And it goes back to the Mills Brothers as well, who were a great vocal group, probably 30s, 40s, who all did trombone impressions and trumpets, and they could do a whole brass section. So my normal one, which is just stick your lips together, Adam, and sort of moan a bit, sounds like, I'd say sort of a cup mute on a trumpet, like this. Can we hear yours?
What,
Just one note for now.
do I put my lips together?
Yeah. No, you're opening your mouth. Keep your lips together.
Nothing comes out.
That is what we call the silent practice mute.
I thought a mute is meant to be.
Well, a mute obviously makes a trumpet.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do, there's also the Harmon mute. Sounds better with a bit of reverb. So, All Blues by Miles Davis. Then my favourite, which is sort of the plunger. So you'd start with a...
That's good.
With a bit of a growl. But it ends up with a sort of, I have to pretend I'm playing the trumpet. Trombone at the end.
That's
your go. I'm not an expert. There are, go and listen to the Mills Brothers. They're just fabulous.
But I don't even understand at what point, when did you decide to do that? Were you bored? Yes, you must be
bored on a gig.
Bored on a gig.
Yeah, I think I was just sort of trying something. I used to love George Benson singing and playing to his own guitar solo.
Can you beatbox?
Not well. But I used to do a lot of gigs with people like Beardy Man and Shlomo.
Oh, they're good. Oh, that's what I should have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Get Shlomo. But beatboxing...
I just have to say box and cats and box and cats and box and
boots and cats and boots and cats.
At this point, Joe, in the podcast, I'd like to be taught something.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we'll have to move into the central section if that's allowed.
Yes, we might need to move the mics.
Okay. Well,
do I need a mic?
I can just do this. It's with my hands.
Yes, hands the judicious.
So this is a little sort of parlor trick my mum learnt from her father, who was an architect. So no showbiz on that side.
Okay.
Yeah, so if I had friends round, it would be, Mum, do your thing. So Adam's come round to my house for tea, and I'll pretend to be Mum.
And cake?
No.
No
cake.
A Victoria sponge is my thing.
Earl Grey tea.
Earl Grey tea and Victoria sponge.
Loose leaf. Okay, let's hope this is picked up. So it goes like this.
Oh my God.
So you have to do it quite quickly in the end.
Can you do it slowly?
Yes, of course, I'll teach you. So you slap, flip, flip, blah. Do that first. Slap, flip, flip, blah. Same again, we're going to the right. Slap, da, da, da. And then all three. Slap, da, 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 da. Yes.
Oh.
Always a ja in the middle. Flirt, do, do, Speed it up. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ba ga ga ga. Ba da da da. Da 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 da. Adam, concentrate. So eventually you get to daddle-a-dum, daddle-a-dum, daddle-a-dum.
So people would come around to your house to do that.
Huge.
Amazing.
What a woman.
Well, thank you. Your
my
woman,
pleasure.
your mother.
That's my tribute to my mother.
Thank you, Mrs. What's her first name?
Annabelle.
Thank you, Annabelle. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You did that partially well.
May I say, of all the things I've done being taught, that's possibly the best, which just goes to show how rubbish I was.
Okay.
How rubbish I was at everything else.
I was thinking about, my other thing, which I do as a stress reliever, is that. Which is just doing that, or the William Tell.
A friend of mine can play a teeth.
Oh yeah, the picking of the teeth.
I think that
it's all just things you need to learn to try and to impress the love of your life who hasn't turned up yet. Grace Kelly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell me about the royal family, or what you allowed. How did that?
I can't tell you anything.
Well, we had someone of this who made lemon mousse for the Queen Mother.
Oh, really?
He was a chef before he turned into. I had a pantomime dame,
Yeah.
who was a chef and had done lemon mousse for the Queen Mother.
Right.
And then, yeah.
Who was that?
His name is Anthony Robbins.
Right. Lemon mousse for the Queen Mother.
Yes, but he was a chef before he was...
Yes. What can I say? Well, I
Well, just how did it arise, the gig?
well, I've done a few for other members, but the big two, the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, when they were both alive. This was their 70th wedding anniversary. And I got a call through my agent from Liz Anson.
Ah, yes, Lady Liz. Yes,
who was the Queen's cousin and has done all her parties for years and years and years. I'm organising the party for the 70th at Windsor. And you have been asked for. Well, it was extraordinary, really. I mean, there were so many meetings, and we were there, looking at the flower displays on the tables and being involved in that. The actual gig was the most nervous I've ever seen anyone. Joanna Lumley was there. I mean, she's kind of complete water off a duck's back, everything. She was very nervous, had fascinating Aida. I was sort of really lovely, quite old school cabaret thing, and I did my improvised medley, which didn't go very well because...
Did they participate?
Well, I mean, you look out to a sea of... I've done events where there are big people, but this was the Queen's table, and then Charles's table, and then Edward's table, and the others, and then the young ones, and then everyone else in the room was a head of state. Every country on earth that had a king or a queen, they were all in there. And they have seen every court jester or every entertainer, any balloon modeler, any whatever, pantomime dame. And I asked them to shout out some songs, and there was silence. And I thought, this isn't going well. So I looked at now King Charles, and I'd done a couple of things for him before. Come on, sir, help me out, please. So he went, Scriabin's third piano concerto. No, that's not helping me out. That is sealing the coffin. I knew-ish socially Kate Middleton before she became royal person. So I was sort of looking at her going, you've got to help me out. The young table. And eventually there was a bit of something. We'd all finished. Then we had to do the line-up, very much shaky hands. I mean, it's extraordinary, really. It just felt like a normal gig to me, but everyone was saying, oh, it must be the honour of it.
Were you nervous?
I was quite nervous because I knew it would be a tough crowd.
So rather than...
It's not what we say a warm room.
No.
Because everyone's slightly tense because it's a big moment.
Of course you would.
And everyone's wearing sashes.
Yeah.
Or sort of epaulets.
It's like what's that film? Stalin, The Death of Stalin.
Death of Stalin.
Yeah, where they've all got massive sort of...
Yeah, no one can quite say what they feel or want. Anyway, looking back, I thought that would be a life-changing gig. I thought, people are going to be flooded with offers and absolutely nothing from that one.
Yes, because I suppose that's a sort of like a hermetically sealed world, isn't it? It doesn't.
They aren't asking for your card.
Yeah, they're asking for your card.
Yeah. But I met some fabulous people. There was a guy called Judge the Poet, who you might know.
Judge, I might know him.
And I met him there, and we've since seen each other in various airports and different festivals. Someone who can improvise brilliantly a poem out of thin air. I find that fascinating. I mean, that felt as far away from being a jazz musician as possible. That I was definitely a turn, but it made me think this could be more of a thing. So that is often what I do. A good chunk of my time is doing things like that. So
moving forward now, in terms of your own ambitions as to ideally what you want to do, is it more the same? Would you have a specific...
Yeah, I think what my thing is what I'm quite good at is bringing people together, doing collaborative shows. I love doing sort of Joe Stilgoe and Friends. Because like you, I love variety. I've done Christmas shows where I'll get Le Gâteau Chocolat, I'll get, Jolie Papillon. Fabulous people, singers, West End singers, celeb, Rob Brydon or whoever.
So that is literally a variety show.
Yeah,
then.
And I love variety shows. I mean, my ambition was always to try and get something like that on the TV.
But this is this is where I'm sort of coming from, because I think there's so much incredible, unusual talent there, and we still have sort of recovering from the sort of 1980 Seaside Special type of thing.
Yeah, what we miss on TV is a really good distillation or advertisement for the world. Because it used to be, we were talking off air about the Generation Game and about shows I grew up with, that featured talent. And that often now is a chat show with a very well-known musical artist for one tiny song.
Yes.
But we all loved the Parkinson Show when you'd get Robin Williams doing impressions or Sammy Davis tap dancing or people with a proper party trick and a skill to entertain. I do find it a bit, the constant chat show fodder, which is just talking about the thing you've just done. Do you have any funny stories about? That's not entertainment for me. That's people talking about their work. I want Tom Cruise to come on and skateboard.
Or play his
teeth. Or do a live, to have to shave someone's head in 2 minutes.
It's also,
So that's probably a shared thing. I think you speak to TV people. I have spoken to some TV people who go, yeah, I'd love to do that. And then they lose their jobs because they suggest it. It's been tried. It's sometimes, I suppose, where Britain's Got Talent was a really good thing because it sort of democratized talent.
And
but for me, lots of those people weren't the very best of their, in their field because they were.
You're right. But for me, you see, variety is a live thing, not a TV thing. I think you want to feel it. You want to be there. You want to experience it. Seeing on TV is not quite. Well, it never is quite the same thing.
No, it can't.
And actually, for me, in this age of AI and of technology and of the Avatar show and where you can do things, still the real magic lies in the live work, in the live show.
Yeah.
Not least because subconsciously things can go wrong. I always think that's, you're not conscious of that, but that's the magic. If you knew when Joe Stilgoe went on, there was no chance of anything ever going, it wouldn't, who would care?
It's unlikely. I love things going wrong and I really enjoy telling the audience when they have.
What's the most wrong you've had? Or a classic wrong?
We just launched a new album called Welcome to the Club, which is all songs about.
And he's not selling that, he's just mentioning it.
I am selling it. Buy it. Buy it now.
What's it called again?
Welcome to the Club.
Welcome to the Club. And
so
is that original stuff?
Yeah, songs written with Giacomo Smith, who's a great musician. And it's all songs about characters you meet in a jazz club. So it's sort of a fantasy night
I like that.
At a jazz club. And we've been touring that. But because I've written the songs, you would assume you know them. Very often start in the wrong key. Very often sing the wrong lyrics. And we'll be shouting to the band, what is it, D flat? But the worst, I think my professional nadir, is this what you're asking?
Yeah, I am.
From way back when I was still sort of trying to find my name, not sure what I was wanting to do exactly. And a friend said, I played keyboards in Footloose, the musical in the West End. Would you ever consider doing it? And I thought, well, maybe. I mean, it's not my cup of tea particularly. Turned up for the gig, second keyboard. So all the silly sounds, this church organ, but also the drum fill at the start of the show.
Quite important.
Quite important. Because the drummer was busy playing the drums.
Yeah.
Apparently. Not doing the drum fill. But it was all, for any techie-minded people out there, you have a sort of foot pedal which changes the patch. So on the piece of music it says, song 5, I need a hero. And then it'll have a sort of another thing saying which patch it is, 23. And because you don't have time, you have to click through. I'd never done this before. I'm a pianist, not a keyboard player. So I was constantly on the wrong patch, clicking through. And once you click through, you can't go back. So I was playing church organ. Massive explosion. The cast looking up to the box. This is where the keyboards were, in the box. I'm going, oh God, sweating. Barely see anything, like windscreen wipers. And the drum fill had already happened. But all the way through this, I'd seen the MD on his phone. I was thinking, that's unprofessional. I mean, I know I'm struggling, but he shouldn't be on his phone. And he was on the phone. I was thinking, well, that's a bit odd. Maybe he's got trouble at home. We got to the end of the first act. I thought, no one had died. And the MD said, Joe, just wait there, if you would. And I thought, he wants to tell me about something funny that's just happened. And then he went off, and then in through the door came my friend who got me the gig in the first place, who had clearly not left the theatre, was just sort of waiting around to see how I'd do. And the MD had been on the phone to him saying, Mark, you've got to come in. This guy's an absolute joke. So I got fired in the interval. I said, I'm afraid you can't do the second half. And I was looking through the music going, this is my half. I'm good at this half. I can do this.
I hope you got paid. I hope you got half
I know,
paid.
of course I didn't get paid. The tail between my legs-ishness of...
Oh, well.
Anyway, I got fired and I just walked out of the theatre and just felt as low as you could possibly feel, because it was embarrassing in front of people who I, hoped would think I was a good musician. No. Checked my phone. I had a text from my friend Chris Hill, who's a great bass player. In fact, plays with Ray and Jamie Cullum, amongst others. And he said, I'm playing with Martin Taylor tonight, Pizza Express, Dean Street. If you're around, come on down. So then my life went from the worst to going to the Pizza Express, meeting Martin in the Toucan, the pub next door, having a pint of Guinness. And he said, well, you should come up and sing a couple of numbers. And it was that night that I thought, jazz is my world, not playing in pit bands. But now I've since written musicals and I've thought, well, there is something that drew me to that world, but definitely not second keyboards for Footloose the musical. And I do apologise to anyone involved in that production. But it was me.
Before we end, I just want to have a quick chat to you about jazz clubs and the shutting thereof, because I know you feel very strongly about that. And have you started an organisation or your work?
We started a little campaign that's sort of gathering momentum, partly inspired by this new album, because Giacomo, who I'd mentioned, who I wrote these songs with, Giacomo Smith, who's a fabulous musician, but he used to run a club called Kansas Smitty's, which was in East London, Broadway Market, very much underground, how most people think a jazz club would look. But only 40 covers, probably 40 seats. Tiny upright piano, it was great. But COVID hit and they couldn't reopen because of funding and, the measures needed, all that stuff. And lots of venues, in fact, never reopened after COVID because you needed a whole chunk of money to pay for all the social distancing, but also just to encourage people back to coming to things like that. So it never reopened, and we were talking about that. And this album is now 5 years been 5 years in the making, actually, since then. And the number of jazz clubs we've both played in around the world, and that there's always this shared cast of people. That's who we wrote the songs about. But also a similar community feeling that jazz clubs are very special. They're not 2,000-seat concert halls. They're not 10,000-seat arenas. They have a very specific economic issue that they all share. And that is, people come to jazz clubs not necessarily because they've heard of the person they're going to see, but because they want to be in a space that is intoxicatingly romantic or dynamic or spontaneous, like you're talking about. The variety, for most people, jazz exists live. It's not able to capture that joy of what happens between the bandstand and the audience. And just, from various chats and experiences myself of playing in jazz clubs that, if they had some funding like the opera world does or the classical world does, or let's face it, even the theatre world does, of a bit of government heft behind it, that they could be operating in much, more salubrious venues. Some jazz clubs are really run in some community centre that's not set up for music, bright lights and all that stuff. And this is sort of talking about the UK, really. So yeah, I just thought I'd write a letter to the government, to Lisa Nandy, who is the culture secretary. Sadly not. The person who was going to be culture secretary, I'd met, and we talked a lot about things like this. But she lost her seat in the election, so it was a sort of, this is tricky. So I thought, anyway, I'm going to write to her. Got picked up by a few press outlets. Radio 4 called me in for an interview. And suddenly it was a thing. I got a text from my brother, who's he's a academic. He said, "You've just done a thing. It's the thing now." So we're talking to the Music Venues Trust, which is the big umbrella charity that anyone who's a music venue can, join that. And they try to find funding for things. So it's basically trying to get an audience with the government to say, when 48% of the Arts Council music budget is going to opera,
that much,
2% is going to jazz. can we talk about that imbalance? Opera is very much elitist, but as needed as jazz music. I'm not saying there's any issue, but in what world does 48% and 2% make any sense to people? When jazz is a living, constantly adapting art form, opera is very much relying on its history and its archive. And there are new operas, and that's fabulous. But there's a hell of a lot of expense going with opera, whereas jazz has to be nimble. But just to think about, whether there could be more venues like Ronnie Scott's, which survives on private equity and wouldn't survive otherwise. These venues have to be owned by big companies. So that's the idea, that we'd sort of try to get everyone talking about this issue, because I love jazz clubs, and lots of people do. They might not go to them regularly, but they will have gone to a jazz club and gone, yeah, I had a great night there. I don't normally like jazz, and that for me is as important as, putting on a fabulous new concerto with the London Symphony Orchestra.
No, definitely. And I mean, I've talked about this before. I think the issues are even broader than that. I mean, look at education of music, for example, which, unless you either have money or you're very lucky in which school you go to, there is almost none. And just the way the arts are viewed.
Yeah.
There's so much emphasis on STEM subjects at universities, as though the arts are somehow
a treat
not that valuable, either to the economy or to personal well-being. Whereas actually, if we're really getting deep about it, all our humanity lies in the arts, I would have thought.
Yeah, but also huge wealth and economic prosperity comes from it. Billions of pounds are, raised by the entertainment sector. And that doesn't come from people mucking around, after their proper job. Like we were talking about off air, when Retrain, this government sort of retraining program during COVID. Yes, you don't have to be a silly artist. You could be
a proper cyber security person.
Cyber, yes. You could be a cyberman. Put on a helmet and pretend you're in Doctor Who. Yeah, cyber didn't go that well.
Yeah, and I think it's notably worse in England than it is in other places on the continent.
Well, yeah, we always get the sort of grass is greener thing that people say, well, Sweden and Germany and Denmark. But it is true that they hive off more of their arts budgets to music, and in fact, sort of government allocation. I think maybe it's because we take it for granted in this country that we've had the Beatles and the Stones, and we've had Shakespeare, and we've had Beckett, and who else?
Andrew
Lloyd Webber, Adam Sternberg.
Okay.
So, and Germany doesn't feel like it's as lucky in that they don't have, apart from their great composers.
Well, exactly. They're all dead.
They're all dead. Yeah. So that's a big part of the argument as well. Can we help it filter out to schools and to just the general country?
Because it's not even about earning a living from it. It's
about it enriches everyone's lives. Yes. And everyone knows that from music. If you put music in schools, children are happier.
And probably do better in other subjects as well. Yes. Yeah. So it's a very short term.
Yeah. So let's do that, please.
Let's do that. So that was our political message at the end. Thank you very much. So thank you, Joe, for what has been remarkably interesting and fantastic time. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
So everyone, if you enjoyed this episode and want to find out about future episodes or find out more about Joe and his album, do visit us on our socials, which are TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And I look forward to seeing you all at the next episode. Thank you very much.